Hey everybody, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to Beekeeping for Newbees. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen. I do appreciate you. And as always, feel free to reach out, Jeff, at beekeepingfornewbees.com. That's going to be NEWBEES.com. So if you are just joining or have not been keeping track, yesterday we kicked off Varroa week here on the podcast. All 5 episodes this week are focused on the Varroa mite, starting with yesterday's overview of what it is, where it came from, and why it is the single biggest threat in beekeeping today. So if you missed that, please go back and check out episode 202. Today, we are going to go inside the cell, and things are about to get a little bit sciencey, which I think is going to be pretty fun. And on top of that, every single episode this week is going to kick off with a real inspection report coming from one of my colonies. So you get to follow along with what's happening in my apiary real time. So we're going to do this every day this week. So I will see you tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that. It's basically like we're best friends now, whether you like it or not. All right, so let's get into yesterday's hive report with colony 61. We had an outside temperature yesterday of 60 degrees Fahrenheit, around 15.5 Celsius, slight winds, maybe around 10 to 12 miles an hour, and it was a mostly sunny day. Now, this was a 4-frame nuke. And I do a lot of these when I'm setting up brand new colonies. A lot of times when I'm installing package bees and, these are being done in a time of year where we still have some weird nighttime temps. We still have a few cold spells that show up. So I will regularly put package bees into 4 and 5 frame nukes. It's just a really great way to kind of keep things tight and contained, easy to defend, easy to maintain, thermoregulate the environment. And I'm just really happy with them. But this 4-frame nuke is just over 3 weeks old. They are just now about to start replacing that diminishing population because when we get the packages, there's roughly ballpark around 10,000 bees in there. And as they prepare the comb inside the new, wherever you're putting them inside the new hive, it's going to take them a few days to kind of get all of the comb drawn out, be able to kind of divide the space between, okay, we're going to put a little bit of nectar over here, but we need a lot of space for brood over here. And it's just going to take some time for them to ramp up. Now, all of my colonies that I installed this year had some drawn comb already in them. So that really helped to accelerate things. The workers just needed to go in, do a little bit of cleanup of the cells, and from there the queen can come in behind them and start laying eggs. So with that kind of timeline, understanding everything that went down, we're at the 3-week point now, or just slightly over it. And there is, of course, a 21-day brood cycle on a worker honeybee. So this population has been dwindling the entire time, and starting this week, they will start to have this new worker brood emerging. So by the time we get to like Sunday, Monday, there should be a fairly decent colony or population within the colony. And I think that then as we move into the following week, we're going to start seeing a bit more progress as those, capped broods start to emerge and they continue laying. So I went into this colony and, recognizing everything that's going on, they had a lot of resources. It was pretty well packed up, but it was also a little bit cool and I didn't want to get, too crazy with anything. So I kind of went in with the intent of just taking a quick look around and doing an assessment as to overall utilization and then getting things, closed back up as quickly as I could. I really did not want to angerify them. That is the technical term for it, by the way. Now, I did have a feeder in there. So there were 3 frames with a single frame feeder. The feeder was empty. There was some kind of brace comb connecting up to that feeder. When I removed the feeder, I made them really, really happy. They were so pleased with my activity. I removed the feeder and there was drawn comb all along the inside edge of the feeder with a whole lot of capped and open brood all over that feeder itself. And I just was like, oh boy, here we go. So that was the nice delivery of the first sting of the season and what will likely be the last smoke-free inspection of the season. It was weird. It's funny to observe this and watch it in real time, but when I did the install, there's really nothing there. There's no comb, there's no brood, there's nothing to protect and defend. Now they have something. Now they've got resources, they've got a home, they're customizing it, they are making it theirs. And up to this point, every time I've gone in the 6 colonies that are here at the house, I have, gone in smoke-free. I just take my time. I'm very, very methodical, very deliberate in my actions, and everything, is going pretty well. When I removed that feeder, I could tell before I even went to take it out that they were not going to like what I was doing. And it is a very natural response for them to want to sting in a situation like that because I'm actively tearing apart what they've built. So I'm certainly not, freaking out, labeling them as a aggressive colony, and I need to watch out or worry in the future. I think they were behaving pretty normally, not really too concerned about their behavior. But there is something else that I do want to point out, and I think it's really important, and a lot of people never consider this, and it's one of those things where I kind of haven't even thought about it that much or even thought to talk about it. But when you get packages of bees, and quite often the same things are going to happen with nukes, you're going to have let's just stay on the packages for now. So when you get this package, a lot of people have this kind of mindset that like there was a colony and there was maybe a queen in that colony, and they took a bunch of frames and they shook them all into a box, and then they took the queen, they put the queen in there with it, and you've got this queen, and that's her colony, and they're just moving in a different way. They're just coming to you as a unit, as a family, but they're just without their comb. What's actually happening is there is like a harvesting of bees, and they're taking frames and they're shaking bees down into these kind of funnels that put them into a really large container, and then they will scoop out the requisite number of bees to fill your 3-pound package, install your sugar syrup and your queen cage with your queen, box it up, ship it to you. Those worker bees that are inside there are absolutely very likely to not be in any way related to that queen. They may even be from multiple races of bees. It just depends on where you're sourcing them from and the types of bees that they have in their apiary. So I've had a few people who started out and they were really concerned early on. They're like, I don't know what's going on. These bees are really aggressive and they're just all over me. I've only been doing this for a week or two and they're just really defensive. It's really, really important to give them about a month, maybe even like 5 or 6 weeks, to give them the opportunity to kind of age out all of those bees that were in the package. And then now everything beyond that is all going to be the genetics of your queen. So if they're a little bit temperamental or there's anything about them that you're not really a big fan of when it first starts, when you're first kicking things off, don't worry too much. Give that queen the opportunity to make sure that she has fully dispersed all of her genetics throughout that colony, and then assess what you have. So with this colony, what my original gut instinct was I'm going to pull this frame feeder out of here because the frame feeder had, like I said, it's got brood of all phases on it. And I mean, open brood, young brood. I didn't look for eggs, but I'm pretty sure there probably were some on there. In fact, I'm a tiny little bit concerned that the queen may have even ducked in behind some of that comb in there. So I hope she's okay. I did not have any smoke and it was cold and I didn't want things to be open too long. But if I was in expansion mode, if I was really looking to grow, I would have just taken that feeder, taken it over to like a 2-frame nuke, dropped it in with a comb foundation, frame in there, or a wax foundation, whatever I've got. I would put it in there with a frame, but I would also shake in about like 2 frames of bees with that in that little 2-frame nuke, close it up and let them make a queen. I would have absolutely positively done that. I barely have enough time to manage what I've got, so I'm not really looking to expand. Plus, again, like I said, I've got this feeder with all this brood comb on it. I don't want it outside the hive too long. So I ended up just putting it back in, and I repositioned things slightly to make sure there was plenty of room to get to the 4th frame. So they have 2.5 out of their 3 available frames are completely drawn up. I fully expect that if I leave them alone for much longer, they are going to be making queen cells within the next 7 to 10 days. I think if I go back out there and I inspect again, let's say on Sunday, I don't think I will see queen cells then, because remember, they're just about to start replacing the workforce. But I believe within 2 weeks, we'll start to see queen cells, because they're going to be still bringing in food and nectar and pollen. All these resources are still going to be coming in. So it's not a matter of how long is it going to take them to draw out the one side of the frame and how much time will they have left over. It has nothing to do with that. It's all going to come down to the fact that there's no more space to rear brood, and that's going to make them want to move. So I do need to be very aggressive with this colony. They are a top priority. And what I'm going to be doing is, we've talked about installing a package of bees, and I put that video out on YouTube the other day. The installation for a nuke, because that's a question that comes up fairly regularly. How do I install, my nuke? And it's really easy. It's more of just a moving from, point A to point B. You have active colony in box, move to active colony in different box. Same thing, just a little bit of movement. But I am going to show you a video. I will do a video of that, and it's probably going to be like a 2-minute video. Very straightforward, very simple. I think, if I remember correctly, I think like half of my colonies right now are in nukes. So we're going to go ahead and move them into full size Langstroth hives. I have 2 colonies now that are in Langstroth Deep's 10 frame, and they're doing well. I do have 1 colony that's going to be in an 8 frame Langstroth setup. They need to be double checked. That was the one where I decided that it would be a really cool idea to leave the cork over the sugar plug and then let that queen cage fall down to an area where I couldn't see it. So when I did an inspection and came through later, I thought it was already gone and didn't realize the queen was still in it. Yes, that's what I did, and I love admitting that to all of you. But I did that. I was not focused in the way that I should have been, so that's 100% on me. Anyway, I fully expect now that we are at a point where they are about to be capping some brood. So I want to get in there and just confirm that tomorrow. So tomorrow we will do that colony and give you the report on that one. And I think that that's going to be a pretty good thing. I may actually end up needing to bring a few resources to them, because they are definitely dwindling in population right now. But we'll deal with that, and we'll talk about that during tomorrow's inspection. But today's colony, what they're going to be doing, like I said, they're going to be moving into a full Langstroth Deep. I've got to go down to the storage and get all of my hardware, because I have a very mixed hardware environment in the apiary right now. And I like that for a lot of reasons. I like being able to show people, you want to use an 8 frame, here you go. You want to use a 10 frame, no problem. You want to stack some nukes up, cool, here you go. And you can see these different things, and you can see the way that I inspect them, the way that I interact with them, and kind of make decisions for yourself based on, what you think is going to be a good fit for you. I do have some extra 4-frame nukes, so I may take the 2 4-framers that I have now and just run them vertical. I've got another one in a 5-frame, and I've got, I think I still have 2 5-frame boxes with me right now. What I'm out of is frames. Like, I've got to get to my storage space ASAP, because I have no frames left. And I do have the ability to build, I think I've got enough hardware to build 20 and enough wax foundation for it, which I might need to do that. Anyway, sorry for the brainstorming on the fly here. So that's kind of the overview of that inspection. Like I said, it is a very high priority colony, and I do need to intervene relatively quickly with that. And I will keep you updated as to how I handle the feeder. But what I still think I'm going to end up doing with that is I am still going to move that into another colony. And what I'll do is I will probably move it into a 4-frame or a 2-frame. I'll fill the feeder, and I'll kind of leave that in place as just like a little, breeder nuke or whatever. I mean, I don't want to destroy all of that comb that has viable brood on it. So I'll keep you updated. We'll see what happens. All right, so let's get into today's topic, and we're going to be talking about something that I think is personally, to me, very fascinating. And like I mentioned, it is a little tidbit or fact about the Varroa mite that I am about 99% sure I've never explained. But, as time progresses and as everyone's skill levels continue to rise, I think that being able to understand some of these subjects in a little bit greater detail is really going to help you to kind of better manage your bees, get a better handle on what's happening, and maybe help you strategize a little bit better. I think that quite often we go into something and very early on things become procedural. When you see this, do this. Always do this, never do that. It's kind of very black and white. But as you become better and more comfortable and you can get into, more of a consistent kind of a system that's working for you, it's really, really helpful to understand the why. There are a lot of people, I think it's kind of interesting when you just see kind of the nature of humans and people. I have some people who are like, I just want the procedure, the steps. Give me 1 through 10. What do I got to do? They don't care about the why behind it. They're like, I just want healthy bees. I want them to live. Just tell me what to do, and I'll just do what you tell me over and over again. But I think you also then have kind of like that second category of people where they really want to dive deep. They want to understand the why. I know that I am that way. I know that I function better when I understand the why. And a lot of it comes down to, at least in my opinion, for me, is there is a procedure in place and this is what we're doing and this is why. And then in my mind, it's okay, cool. Well, you just gave us 10 steps. Well, what if we got rid of 2, consolidated 3 and 4, and then added a new one after what you have as number 10? Maybe if we did it like that, we might even be more efficient or more effective or whatever. Again, knowing your audience is really important when you're asking those questions, because I have found through my younger years in my military career, questions were not always encouraged by military leadership. But I've definitely seen in my professional life that questions and being able to answer them and being able to have some collaborative dialogue is much more encouraged. So I'm saying all of this really just because I want you to understand greater detail on things, and hopefully it'll give you some more insight. So the Varroa mite reproduces in one place within your beehives. They will attach to your bees, go for a ride, get a little drink, cause a little bit of infection. But what they're looking for is the chance to reproduce, and that occurs within a brood cell. So you have your queen running around, she's laying eggs, the eggs hatch, in about 3 days, you have a young larva, and that larva is now going to be fed a very nutrient-rich royal jelly from the worker bees, the nurse bees who are tending to them. And as that worker continues to grow for the next 5 days, it'll get larger and larger, and once the worker recognizes that the larva is at the appropriate age, she then knows that it is time for her to cap the larva in preparation for it to pupate into a worker honeybee. The Varroa mite will sneak her way in there and hide, and then once the cell is capped, she will begin to do what she does best. And in addition to feeding off of the developing larva, she will lay eggs. Now, once she starts laying eggs, she has a sequence that she does, and this is repeated across Varroa mites everywhere. It's just hardwired into the way they do things. The very first egg that she lays is always going to be an unfertilized male. Everything that she lays after that will be a female. So you've got one male and then a series of females all developing inside that capped cell. Now, here's where it gets a little bit interesting. So those offspring, they are going to mature inside the cell. The male then mates with his sisters before they ever emerge. Then the whole family comes out with the bee when she chews her way out of the cell. So in a worker cell, the female mite will typically produce 1 to 2 mature mated daughters per reproductive cycle. But as you've heard us have many discussions in the past, and if you remember any of this from anything in the Discord room or anywhere where the discussion around just how vulnerable that drones are, the drones have an extra 3 days within their development life cycle. So drone cells, the story gets a little different because one of the reasons that the Varroa mite prefers drones is because of that longer period of time. So more time under that capping allows for more time to reproduce. So in a drone cell, she can produce the female Varroa who originally went in, the mother of all of them, can then produce up to 3 mature mated daughters per cycle instead of just 1 or 2. So from the mite's perspective, drone brood is like it's premium real estate. It gives them more time, more offspring, and a better genetic outcome for them, increasing the possibility of passing their genetics along and all that good stuff. So this is why colonies with a lot of drone brood can see mite populations accelerate much faster than colonies without it. So here's kind of a little bonus, pro tip here that comes out of understanding, that drone brood preference. Some beekeepers will actually use this against the mite by adding a frame of, drone foundation or drone brood, drone comb into the hive. The mite sees that and she's like, ooh, this looks good. That's that bigger cell that I like to be in. So she goes in there. The queen sees the larger cell. She knows that it is a drone cell meant for a drone egg, a non-fertilized egg. So she goes through, she lays in that area. It's capped. The Varroa mite starts, working her magic and doing her thing. And then the beekeeper takes the whole frame out, throws it in the freezer for a little while. And now all of those mites who were in there trying to reproduce are gone. No chemical intervention, no sprays, no disruptions to queen laying activity because of a high level of, any kind of a treatment. It's pretty cool. And what's also nice about it is you can take it out of the freezer a couple days later. You can cut open, some of those cappings, grab some tweezers and pull out the drone brood and start looking to see how many were inside, what was going on, and get a ballpark of just how many of them you prevented from reproducing inside the colony. And for the double bonus, I do not have any chickens, but it is my understanding that chickens love drone brood. So if you'd like to, put those in the freezer and then do a little inspection of them and feed them to the chickens, apparently they are big drone brood fans. Now, coming up later in the week, we're going to talk a little bit more about, some actual treatment options and things. But I did want to bring this up because I think that this is a method that a lot of people use, and it is a really cool way of trying to address things in a non-chemical way. And it's a sound approach. It's not what I would recommend to say, like, this is all you have to do and everything's going to be fine. But again, it's another tool in the toolbox. Now, I do want to mention something briefly that kind of connects back to what we talked about yesterday regarding the Asian honeybee and their natural resistance. So what researchers and bee breeders have been kind of working on for years is trying to capture that trait in the Western honeybee, like we discussed yesterday with the VSH, the Varroa sensitive hygiene. And the idea here is selectively choosing breeder queens that have the ability to detect a mite inside the capped cell and to signal to the colony to open that up and remove it before she completes her reproductive cycle. Now, again, this is not the complete answer as well, but it is another one of the tools. And I know that we mentioned it yesterday, but I also wanted to bring it up again today because when you start layering things on, you get your VSH queens and colonies that have that hygienic behavior. You're using some drone brood. You're trying these things that are all relatively non-invasive and allow you to go after the problem in a non-chemical way. It's kind of a cool thing to at least look at. Now, one more thing before I wrap up for the day, and this is really important. So the mite does not stay contained within your apiary. And this is really important to remember, understand, recognize. This transfer is happening at shared flowers, shared water resources. It is very efficiently transferred through robbing behavior. So if you have one colony robbing out another colony, very high probability that there are some mites being exchanged. You can have a colony that's in that 0 to 1 mite per 100, and they go out on a little robbing event, and your numbers change very quickly. Also remember that drones will drift. Drones will drift from colony to colony. That's a pretty normal thing. We already know that they have a higher likelihood of being infected anyway. And then they go ahead and move from one colony to another, passing their Varroa mites with them. So when you combine this idea of a sick and weak colony being robbed out with the possibility of a drone moving between colonies, there's a lot of possibility and potential for continued movement of Varroa mites into your colonies. You can be doing everything right. This is one of my favorite things to say. You can be doing everything right and still have a bad outcome. So don't think that just because you treated, you're out of the woods. Don't think that because you did a test in March or April and you're at 0 to 1 and you don't have to do anything till August. Those numbers can change very, very quickly. So one of the reasons that I'm bringing this up in particular is, again, a lot of people who feel relatively isolated where they are. They think I'm in the middle of nowhere. There's no other beekeepers around me. I'm fine. And I hear that so frequently that I need to make sure I'm mentioning it to you. Like, just because you think you're alone, it doesn't mean that there aren't other mites around that are still potentially getting in from unmanaged colonies and those that you may not be aware of. So I just wanted to bring that up again because it's kind of important. So tomorrow we're getting into the part that I think trips up a lot of beekeepers, and that's figuring out, whether or not you have a mite problem and what to do with that information. So we're going to talk about, the alcohol wash, dish soap wash. We're going to talk a little bit about the sticky board and where it's a good fit and what it can tell you and maybe what it can't. We're going to talk a little bit very briefly about why I don't recommend the sugar shake. That is something that a lot of people used for a long time, and I'm not a huge fan, and we'll definitely cover that. Like I said, we'll cover that tomorrow. But I hope you found some value in the episode. If so, let's have a cup of coffee together and talk about it. Take care, be kind to one another, and remember that I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. We'll talk to you soon.